And then, Stevie, what do you want to talk about today? What is it that you're wanting to be talking about?
I'd like, I wanted to do this for a while, and I couldn't think of anyone I'd rather do it with than you. So that's that I wanted to.
Yeah,
So,
cool.
we've both been in this game a long time, and maybe a little as kind of like almost as because I said to you, I'd like to call this podcast, hashtag live kindly.
Yeah.
And I know the work you do. You talk about that a lot. Specifically, working with our patients, about being kind to yourself. You always give me a hard time about, not being nearly kind enough. When I talk, say, if you don't do this, you're gonna die. And that's kind of the place I come from, the training I come from, and your training is completely different. But I tell you where this kind of started was just before COVID. Jenny, my partner, she's amazing. She's one of those people that she doesn't talk a lot, but if she talks, then listen. I don't know if that makes sense.
That makes total sense.
And there's some people who just talk, and there's those people that don't necessarily talk very much, but when they do, it's a good idea to listen. And I was in a place where I was fighting, still very much in a corporate space, and fighting for deals, feeling like a victim, and we were walking around the garden one evening, and she said to me, we need to live more kindly. And at the time, I didn't think about it at all. It was just kind of like okay. But it started to resonate with me, and it started to kind of sit with me, and it started to become something, particularly during COVID, when we made a decision then to join forces, and for me to leave the environment I was in that was really difficult. It was toxic. It was just not a good place, and start working together, and
yep.
And what it really was about was to say, if we think about it, live kindly. It's got to start with ourselves. We got to live. We got to be kind to ourselves. So what does that mean? How do we live? How do we eat? How do we exercise? What are the things that we need to be kind to ourselves? But outside of ourselves, then in a fellowship that I'm part of, a 12-step fellowship I'm part of, we have a saying that says, you can't change people, places, or things.
Yep, I agree with that.
But we can control the little environment, the little space on the earth that we occupy. And so our home and the land that it occupies now, we started to apply that same motive. So when you ask yourself the question, are you being kind? Well, that means you don't poison things. It means that you try and create biodiversity in your home, because that's one of the things that we have to do if we're going to survive on this planet.
Yeah.
So it became about saying, okay, be kind to yourself, be kind to the little space you occupy. But then you've got your family, you've got your community. And then ultimately, maybe if everyone kind of does that, maybe we can do something, in this world. So, I mean, that's kind of where I was coming from, was to say, because then you and I come from, we met when we were, 18 years old. I don't know how old we were, young, idealistic. But we've stayed in the industry, we've stayed in the game, And there's a lot of people that I think we could bring onto onto this talk, onto this podcast, and say, whether it's physicians, whether it's personal trainers that we think are doing a great job, whether it's I'd love to talk to an expert on medical aid, because I think we're being stupid. Whether whether it's a conversation with you and I about a topic, or whether it's bringing people on that can really maybe share some stuff around that. I don't know what you think about that as an idea, as a topic, as a way forward.
Yeah, look, I mean, Steve, I mean, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to join you on this journey. To be exact, we were probably 22 when we started this journey together, because that was more or less when we started Health and Racket, when they were still selling debentures.
Yep.
All those years ago. And the most important thing about the language that we hold is that, although you may say, listen, if you don't do this, you're going to die, and I say, listen, if you do this, you're going to have more life. Our end goal is exactly the same, Stevie. So I know your heart is right there. You want people to be well. You want people to succeed. I know how passionate you and Jenny are. So we definitely speak the same language, maybe different semantics, but we're on the same page for sure. And for me, I think living kindly, it really does, like you said, it's like really does start with yourself. And then it's that whole thing about, those small acts of kindness. I mean, we actually forget. I mean, literally, I mean, take, for instance, everybody's like taxis, for instance, it's literally training ourselves to actually let the taxis be the trigger for an act of kindness. We don't have to physically do anything, as opposed to raging at them and like swearing at them, is to actually imagine the difference it would make to our own chemical signatures if we had to envision the taxi cocooned in light and safely on his way. And what would that have cost us just to break and let them in? I mean, that's it, and I know that it's not always going to be like that, but that's how we start. And 1,000 times a day, just to be a little bit more kinder, but more sort of engaged with the person who makes your coffee. Your favorite barista, find out their name, just have a chat with them, find out who the person is that sort of, does the cleaning, and sort of just acknowledge them and sort of greet them for the day, and do all these other things, because it's in those small acts of kindness that we actually set up a chemical signature that could really begin to resonate and move through people, and for me, it's all about, energy and about what we give, and what we give is what we receive. So if we're giving vengeance wherever we go, we've got like our bodies are symptomatic of a cancer or an inflammatory thing, but we're giving vengeance and spewing vitriol on everybody. How do we expect to heal?
Absolutely.
So yeah, Steve. I mean, from that point of view, I'm very much about language sets, as you know, as a movement and mindset coach. It's very much about languages. It's about, and kindness is such a wonderful baseline to have as a default mode, as opposed to like a negative.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what I notice, when I listen to you, is that is your default setting. When is that you actually want to get to know the person you're talking to, and it always amazes me to hear you talking to new patients who come on our program, and you put them at ease in a heartbeat, and suddenly and so much of what I've been banging away on now for like decades, you've done in a completely different way. So
yeah, it's been decades as well, though.
No, I got you.
Lots of experimenting, lots of like sort of self experimenting and self discovery as well. So I think hey Stevie, it's not life is throws curveballs at us all the time. It's how we learn to come back from that. I think that's really the thing, and
absolutely,
that comes back to the whole thing, being kind to self. As a coach, we've got this thing. Sorry, man, I kind of segued you out of your conversation.
No, not at all.
As a coach, we're supposed to create rapport. We're supposed to listen to the person. We're supposed to sort of mirror them. But then what about self? What about the type of questions we ask ourselves? What about how do we mirror ourselves? What is the language, our self language? What are we discovering about ourselves? What are our expectancies about ourselves? And then usually, I mean, that language set is an adopted one. It's one that we've learned along the way. It's not even, I mean, I wonder if how many of us actually have a truly original language set that's evolutionary, that's exciting, that's creative, that's novel, and not
So
all
you're
of
saying that so that's an interesting question. So are you saying that the majority of us adopt a language setting that we have heard from someone else, or that we've learned?
I mean, in my experience in working with clients, mindset clients, personal training clients, coaching clients, is that, and through the research that I've done for my own personal journey, is that we're generally informed by our environment. And we adopt the language. So when I talk about language sets, it's kind of like a mindset. That's sort of like what your thought patterns are. So thought patterns, language sets, that's, I mean, I just use it, is that we adopt that from our primary caregivers, from our parents, from our schools, from our religions, from our environment entirely. And here's I'm gonna chuck this right in the beginning, and this is something that's taken me a long while to understand. Is that, Stevie, you know that I always get people to a point where when we're having a conversation, and I say to them that our language, the language of healing, the language of kindness, the language of well-being, the language of our next evolutionary step into the greatest expression of who we are, doesn't exist yet, Steve. It doesn't exist yet because we haven't thought to invent it. And that for me has been like, and then straight away that puts that responsibility in our courts, because if we have to think that we need to invent our next most evolutionary language set, and you know, the current language that has brought us to this point where we find ourselves, where we're being unkind to ourselves and to whomever in our environment, is not one that necessarily serves us, but we keep doing it and it keeps changing. Everything changes except it changes to the same thing because we keep thinking the same thoughts.
Nothing changes if nothing changes.
And nothing and so we go. So the invitation here in these conversations is to actually then start interacting with people and asking people, what is it? I mean, all work that I've done with people, and especially with the work that I've done with your clients, your and Jenny clients that you've introduced me to, is what I've really come to understand, Steve. And this has been like a real wake up call for me. It's not okay. So listen, what can we do to get rid of your symptoms? I mean, of course, that's your and Jenny's expertise from a medical point of view, and you know that side. But what I have found is that the work that we dive into, right? How creative are you currently being? What hobbies do you have? What is your 3 to 5 to 10-year vision? How do we create vision around this? What are you busy doing that actually is giving you a sense of joy? And most people are stuck. They're stuck in the space where they find themselves. They're ruminating. They're turning their life's just turning around. They haven't even thought. So here's the thing. Okay, so you got these symptoms now, but what about when you're well? Oh no, we're going to worry about. No, worry now, because it's when you start focusing that you start giving the person starts developing a sense of self-efficacy,
absolutely,
self-value, self-worth, self-capacity. They start sort of envisioning. I mean, I had one. What's the whole point? Because what if this doesn't go away? You know what? I'd rather be symptomatic and giving it a whirl, my best shot, than actually sit there bemoaning my fate and sort of. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like,
absolutely.
So Stevie, I don't know, a bit of a bit of a, but that's really how I feel. You know, I really feel very passionately about that. At the end of the day, right at the beginning, we're life itself, and life needs to find a way to express. We're not just who we think we are because of what environment has painted that picture for us.
Yep. So, and I mean, that kindness, and I mean, bring it back to an example. You spoke about, taxis. I think it's the uniquely South African experience. It's something that only South Africans understand. But I want to give another example about exactly what you're talking about, and the way when you look at it differently, when you frame something differently. Look, those little black ants. That you find in our kitchens. And when you look at this thing from the perspective of exactly what you're saying, look at it differently. What are they doing? You know what they're doing? They're cleaning up the mess we made. This is so when you look at it that way, they're cleaning up the stuff that we left behind on the kitchen counter in the first place. So,
Yeah.
and here's the thing: as human beings, we're okay with that, as long as they don't inconvenience us.
Yeah.
And as soon as they inconvenience us, you know what we do? We go down to Builders Warehouse and we buy chemical and biological warfare agents, things that we have banned and in use of in wars that we fight against each other. Again, the only animal on the planet that fights wars with each other. And we are not happy until we want to eradicate that entire colony of so I've kind of been looking at it going, what if the conversation, imagine having a conversation with the head ant and like, hey dude, and I can just imagine them standing there with a clipboard saying, hey, like we found, you know, that board, you think clean, it wasn't clean, dude. And by the way, we found some sandwiches that your kid has left behind that he didn't want to take to school. They've been in his cupboard now for about 6 weeks. So they've got a big clue on that. And, you know, what a different conversation you're having. And then imagine saying, where do you want, so I'll tell you what, those sandwiches, I'll go get them. Where do you want me to put them? If you could just drop them off at entrance 6, you know, around the back, that's close obviously to where we need it, that would be cool. But it's just a different framing of the conversation. So what Jenny and I did was we kind of said, surely we're not the only human beings that have ever come across ants. Okay? So when you start doing some research, you find out that they don't like cinnamon. Okay, they don't like cinnamon. Again, think about it, it's really obvious. If you wake up in a bath of cinnamon, you can't smell anything. And remember that their smell is their sight. So they can't see anything because all they've got is cinnamon. So just putting down cinnamon along the lines of where the ants come, they don't go back, you know, but they're quite smart, so they go past the cinnamon. You've just got to be patient, you know, just keep going. And you know what? Guess what? Ants learn. So eventually they go, hey, I don't want to be in the kitchen. Do you think they want to go? Can you imagine, like, you've got the duty to go up into that kitchen where those serial murderers are going to kill everybody. It's just like there's a different way of framing what we are doing. And just
just the way you spoke about this now. I mean, actually, you're so spot on, Steve. It's all about the reframing.
Yeah.
And it's you know, it's really that. I mean, even it's just asking the questions around if somebody's experiencing. So, what is the lesson in this? You know, do I give myself the permission to actually experience this fully, as opposed to resisting it? And you know, so often it's just sometimes it just shows up because that's just how it is. But invariably, people have lost. Invariably, more often than not, is that people have lost the awareness that we are life itself, that we have so much capacity left in us, and they become more and more sort of so focused on the externals and what they're currently experiencing and how limiting that is. They're not even aware of how limiting that is. So it's in that reframing, in thinking about it differently, asking the questions. And the biggest thing that is to, you know, in all of the time that I've been practicing as a coach, as a personal trainer, as a hypnosis facilitator, not one person has ever walked in and said, listen, I'd actually like to be more rageful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Can you
coach me more angry?
Coach me to like excessive rage, where I can like just sort of practice my volatility at quicker than at the drop of a hat. So there's kind of like I mean, just so few times. There's a couple of things, Steve. Control, peace, and calm, and that's it. And then even control is like, okay, so when you got the control, then what? Oh no, it'd be like so you know, it'd be such a peaceful control. You know, it'd be like so calm. It's such a calm control.
Yeah.
And And it's really that, is that then how do we get back to that sense of peace? And everybody as a default wants that. That's our baseline. That's our baseline. People want to be peaceful and be kind. And it's not even so much about having to be kind because you think it's something you need to do. Being kind, if it were a default, that's sort of the chemical signature body, that fight and flight response that likes to raging around, that puts us into an inflammatory situation in the first place. We can actually then self-regulate that. And that comes with breath, but we're going to get into these. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about breath. We're going to talk about being peaceful, being calm, and why sometimes meditation is not the best thing for people to do when they're starting out. Because imagine you're all depressed, and then you got to sit there and you got to sit now, try and sit still for 5 to 10 minutes a day with these thoughts where you've never. So movement for me is absolutely the start with movement. And then so you go, get your body flushed, get blood to your brain, get yourself oxygenated. And but I mean, these are things we can talk about, Steve. This is very exciting because it's just going to.
I'm looking forward to it. And we can shoot the breeze on that. So we're going to do this every week. Yeah, we're going to do this every week. It might be different times. We're going to do this once a week. And I think also to people who do listen to this, tell us what you want to talk about. Tell us what.
Sure.
I'd love to hear that. So I'm sure you would be the same. Tell us a topic that you want to talk about.
Yeah, it's really that thing, Steve. Because you remember what we said was that it's fine you and I having a conversation, thinking that we think we know what people are wanting to hear. But it's really cool if people can actually. So if you are listening and you actually do have a question. And man, it could be about anything, because if we can't answer it, we'll get somebody to answer it for you.
Absolutely.
And yeah, and let's just take it from there, Stevie. So listen,
that's cool.
I can't believe that's our the quickest sort of 25 minutes up already. Man,
you know what? I'm glad. You know what? The most important thing for me was to start it. To get it started. I've been sitting on this for ages. I know that I wanted to say something. I know that I wanted to connect with somebody that I really respected and enjoyed talking to. So I'm first, thank you for agreeing to do this. And I look forward to next week. So, you and I will have a chat about some topics, and we can start to get that out there.
Absolutely.
But if you're listening to this and you want to talk about anything, so specifically, if you want to think about where we come from, I'm an exercise physiologist. I'm a health coach. My partner is a physiotherapist and a functional medicine practitioner. Warren's a mindset coach. Just doing amazing stuff with our patients, just incredible stuff, changing their lives. Certainly, in my view, one of the top personal trainers around this town. So, anything else I've missed there, Warren, to add?
Yeah. Well, what you have missed, Stevie, is that I've got so much space in my heart for you, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's been a good. I mean, how long has it been? 35 years or so.
35 years.
And so thank you. So I know that I've crossed often, and like I said, I've got a lot of space in my heart for you and Jenny, and it's been a privilege up until now, and I look forward to where this is going to go. So
awesome.
All respect and love to you.
All right. I know it's load shedding. So for South African people and non-South Africans, you have no idea what that means. But it's going to go super dark in Warren's world in about 2 minutes. So maybe we call this a day for episode number 1. Thank you so much, my friend.
Good to see you always. Looking forward. Let's see how this goes.
Take care.
Okay.
Bye now. Bye.